Welcome to the complete review for the iPhone 16 Pro. In this video, we are going to cover everything from exterior design, display, performance, and of course, we are going to take a very close and detailed look at the cameras. If there is anything specific you want to learn or know about this phone, we are most likely going to cover it in this video. But anyways, that being said, let's begin by talking about pricing and availability. Right now, if you want to get the iPhone 16 Pro on a normal store like Amazon, you will have 4 different titanium finishes to choose from, which are black titanium, white titanium, natural titanium, and of course the new desert titanium, which is the one that I have right here, and that in my opinion looks very, very good. You will also have 4 different storage options from 128 gigs to 256, 512, and of course the 1 terabyte option, which is very expensive. Now, something you should know is that if you go for the small model, the 16 Pro, you have the option to get 128 gigabytes, but if you go for the bigger 16 Pro Max, those phones start at 256, so you will get much higher baseline storage, but also a much higher baseline price. That's something a lot of people don't know. It's not like they just gave you more storage for the same price. They just basically deleted the 128 gig option for those Pro Max models. So technically, it is a win for the smaller 16 Pro because you have more options to choose from. Now, moving on, we of course have to talk about the design, one of the most important aspects of any new iPhone. And in this case, as you can see, it is completely identical from the back and from the front. There's no differences when it comes to the way it looks. As you can see, we have the same 3-camera layout with the LiDAR sensor and the flash, the same camera bump, the same very nice textured matte glass. And of course, it inherits the only big change from last year, which was the inclusion of titanium on the sides. Now, more specifically, starting from the bottom, we get a set of speakers, a USB-C port, we get a set of microphones right here, and an antenna band for 5G. Then on the left side, we get a SIM ejection tool, only in countries that are not the US, because the US is eSIM only. We get volume down, volume up, and the action button, which you can set up to do whatever you want. In this case, I have it set to toggle the flash. At the top, we get absolutely nothing but another 5G antenna. And to the right, we get the on and off switch. And we get the dreadful, I'll explain why later, camera control button, which, anyways, let's just not talk about it yet. Now, when it comes to the physical size of it, it is really big. Apple, for the first time in a long time, has increased the size from 6.7 inches to 6.9 inches diagonally. So it is the biggest iPhone ever, and it does feel very big. It is not a one-handed device unless you're a basketball player from the NBA. Like it is really big. I would heavily suggest you only buy it if you know what you're getting into, because some people really like that sort of like compact feeling where they can use it with one hand. And this is not one of those devices. More specifically, it is 6.42 inches tall by 3.06 inches wide by 0.33 inches deep. And the weight is 227 grams or 8 ounces, which is, I think, only 2 grams heavier than last year's 15 Pro Max. Now, that being said, and everything considered, it is still a rather comfortable phone to use when you have it in your hand. As I said earlier, it includes a titanium frame from last year's 15 Pro Maxes, and that also added a slight change, but very impactful, where Apple kind of curved the edges of that frame, so they sort of like connected with the display in the back. And even though that is technically on paper, when you look at it, a very minute, very tiny change on paper, it does make a big difference when it comes to the way it feels in your hand, at least as opposed to the old 14s and 13s that, did feel a little uncomfortable in your hand, especially when you had the phone for a while, when you held it for a while. Of course, like with previous iPhones, it is IP68 rated, which means you can submerge the phone up to 6 meters deep for 30 minutes, and it is also dust resistant. So you can take it to the beach or to the desert without worrying too much about some little grains of dirt or sand getting into the phone. Now, something I always say is that even though it is water resistant and you don't really have to worry about water getting into the phone, a lot of people use this advantage to shower with the phone, and they do it every day. My friends, I would highly recommend you avoid doing that because even though it is water resistant, it is not really meant to be showered with warm water, and especially water with shampoo or gel chemicals. Those things can over time corrode the water seal protector that makes it water resistant and eventually break it. So it becomes a non-water resistant phone. And then if you keep showering with it, it's going to break. Water is going to get into the phone. So you can drop it in the pool. You can clean it by just dropping it into water. It's not a big deal. But I would heavily avoid showering with the phone, especially if you do it daily. Now, that being said, as I said earlier, there is a new inclusion to every iPhone 16 or 16 Pro or 16 Pro Max. They all have it, and it's the camera control icon. I'm going to talk about it here because it is technically a part of the design, but we could also consider it a software feature. So if you tap on the button once, it is going to send you directly to the camera, and if you tap on the button again, it is going to take a picture, and that is good. I mean, it is not the most functional, useful thing in the world, but it is a quick access to the camera, which is nice. Now, the problem that I and a lot of people have had with the camera control is that there is a secondary functionality, and it's that if you lightly press on it, you can access this little contextual menu with which you can change some camera settings, like the aperture, the zoom, the camera you're using. So you can technically control the same things you would control with the touch controls, but in a different way with these sort of like capacitive button you can swipe up and down with. Now, the big issue that I've had, and a lot of people, as I said, a lot of people have reported this issue, is that if you grip the phone with a little too much force, you can accidentally activate it. And in the past 3 days, the first 3 days that I've had the phone, I've done it way too many times. Like, it doesn't really take that much force. You sort of like, don't think about it. Don't think about lightly gripping on the phone so you don't activate it, and you end up activating the contextual menu. And sure, it's not a big deal, but sometimes, depending on the setting you want to control, like the depth, the aperture, sometimes it deletes the other controls. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's very confusing. And if you want to swipe it out, I'm going to show you now, you also end up swiping on the traditional touch controls. So say you're on photo mode and you accidentally tap on it and you want to swipe it away, you automatically swipe to video. Or if you want to dismiss it by tapping, you dismiss it, but you also change the exposure on the image of the touch controls. It really becomes messy. I don't think I'm making a good job at explaining how inconvenient and annoying it can be. You can really feel it when you're trying to take a good photo. You're concentrating on what's going on in real life, and this menu is constantly bothering you. So what I've done is actually come to the settings, come to accessibility, and right here on the camera control, there is actually an option, this one, to disable the light press completely. So you can force press the button to access the camera. You can force press to take a picture, but you cannot light press to access the contextual menu. And that's the way that I have it set up. It's the way that I've set it up since I think day 2 or 3 of having the phone, so it didn't bother me. And that's a shame because it is the flagship feature for the iPhone 16 Pro, is the reason why you should upgrade, and I've disabled that feature because it was annoying and it was inconvenient. But anyways, I don't want you to finish the design segment with a sour taste because the design is very, very good looking. And even though it is almost identical to the previous iPhone designs, that's not a bad thing. It is a very beautiful phone. This new gold color is amazing. And something that they didn't say in the keynote, but I've noticed with my unit, is that it is a little bit more resistant to fingerprints, which is great. So yeah, I have no issues with the design on the iPhone 16 Pro. The only little gripe is the camera control not being as useful as Apple intended it to be, but in every other way, I think it is amazing. And if you wanted a good looking and feeling phone, this is a very good looking and very good feeling phone. Now, that being said, I would like to get a little bit more specific about one of those exterior design components I just talked about, and it's the USB-C 3 port. As I said earlier, the iPhone 16 Pro has a USB-C 3 port. The iPhone 16 has a USB-C 2 port, which may not seem like that big of a deal. At the end of the day, it is the same port technically. But this one, the USB-C 3, is actually 20 times faster. So it's not a small difference by any means. Thanks to this transfer speed difference, you will be able to connect high-speed storage units to the 16 Pro and record video straight into those units. Even if it is 4K, 60 FPS, it log, ProRes, doesn't matter. The codec or the frame rate, you can record it straight into external storage. Or even better, you can connect your iPhone to any display or TV up to 4K 60 FPS, so you can more comfortably play your video games or watch your movies. Now, to be fair, you can also connect the iPhone 16 to an external display, but it will be at a much lower resolution. I think it's 720p, very, very low. So it's kind of like it's not worth it at that resolution. And you can also connect external drives to the phone, but you cannot record video into those drives. So you can only transfer stuff once it's recorded. Now, moving on, let's talk about audio. And this is one of the main new advantages on the iPhone 16 Pros. Even though Apple didn't really talk about it in the keynote, the iPhone 16 Pros have improved audio systems. In this case, these are the speakers, the bottom speakers. The top speakers are very hard to show because it's a very thin line between that dynamic island and the metal frame. There it is. I think you can see it now. It is very, very subtle. Both of these top and bottom speakers have been improved, and now we get probably the best sounding audio from any phone in the market. It is very, very impressive. Now, needless to say, Apple didn't include a headphone jack on this iPhone. It can only connect to Bluetooth, but in this case, it is the best Bluetooth standard available, Bluetooth 5.3. So if you want to connect your AirPods or any other headphones, it will be with the fastest, most reliable Bluetooth standard available in the market. Now, when it comes to the sound settings, there's not a lot to show. We have most of the same settings we had on previous iPhones. But there's something I want to show you because most people don't know this exists. If you tap here on keyboard feedback and activate haptic, you can not only hear the keys when you touch them, but you can also feel how they vibrate, which makes the typing experience way, way better than it is by default. I know it is not a big deal and that it is available on previous iPhones, but I just wanted to show you because, in my opinion, it is much better than the default option. But anyways, let's move on to the tests. As always, I'm going to show you samples recorded with my studio microphone of electronic music, hip-hop music, classic music, and last but not least, I'll do a recording with the iPhone so you can not only see how good the speakers are, but also the microphones on the phone. Let's begin.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it.
I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can.
Okay, what do you think? As I said earlier, in my opinion, these are the best sounding speakers on any phone on the planet right now. They are very, very close to the S24 Ultra. I think actually I have it right here. But they are just, I don't know what Apple does. I think it's because they have a specific audio team that engineers the AirPods, and that also works on the iPhone speakers and on, well, every Apple product speakers. But yeah, they've made it sound really, really good. That being said, I'm going to play the audio of this video that you're looking at right now so you can also see, as I said, how good the microphones on the iPhone are, or how bad, if they are bad sounding speakers. Okay, what do you think? As I said earlier, in my opinion, these are the best sounding speakers on any phone on the planet right now. They are very, very close to the S24 Ultra. I think actually I have it right here. But they are just, I don't know what Apple does. I think it's because they have a specific audio team that engineers the AirPods, and that also works on the iPhone speakers and on, well, every Apple product speakers. But yeah, they've made it sound really, really good. That being said, I'm going to play the audio of this video that you're looking at right now so you can also see, as I said, how good the microphones on the iPhone are, or how bad, if they are bad sounding speakers. Okay, so as a conclusion, I believe the iPhone is getting to a point where you can actually start using it to record TikToks or YouTube videos because of how good it sounds, both the microphone and the speakers. It is very impressive. A lot of times it even sounds better than some cheap Amazon speakers you can get for like 15 or 20 bucks. As I said, very, very impressive. It is not that different from the ones on the iPhone 16. I think they are actually the same. It is really not that different from the ones on the iPhone 15s and 14s because the growth and the improvement is actually relatively slow. It's like a little bit better every year. But yeah, as I said, it's getting to the point now where if you have an iPhone, you almost have a studio professional microphone and you have a good Bluetooth speaker you can take anywhere to listen to music, and whatever the genre, doesn't matter, it's going to sound good. Now, that being said, let's move on to some specs. More specifically, let's talk about display specs. In this case, we have a 6.3-inch phone and 6.9-inch on the Pro Max, which are also a little bit bigger than the ones we had last year with 6.1 and 6.7 inches respectively. But we maintain the same aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9, the same LTPO Super Retina display, which also goes from 1 Hz all the way up to 120 Hz. So we still get buttery smooth motion with great battery life savings. It also still has the same XDR OLED display that goes up to 2000 nits of brightness, and it still has HDR10 support for HDR content. Now, resolution, because of the slightly bigger display, has changed. This is the resolution on the iPhone 15 Pro. This is the resolution on the iPhone 16 Pro. But what really matters when it comes to resolution, which is the pixel density, is actually the same in every iPhone, 460 pixels per inch, to get that Retina quality resolution where you cannot actually distinguish any individual pixels. even if you look at the phone from very, very close. Now, what's new on the iPhone 16 Pros, and I think actually on the 16s too, is that they've added a new ceramic shield glass protector that's supposed to be the strongest ever, the most resistant ever. I would actually advise you to take this with a grain of salt because from experience, every time they say the glass is the most strong, resistant they've ever made, that basically means it's like 1-2% more resistant, but it's still glass and glass breaks. So be careful. I would actually recommend you put a screen protector on the front, case on the back as always, because these are very expensive phones and they are a glassed sandwich. Glass on the back, glass on the front. If you drop it, it will most likely break. So put some protection on the phone, just in case. Now, something that is a bit more noticeable is the difference in bezel girth between the Pro phone and the normal phone. As you can see, the bezel is a little bit thinner, a little bit slimmer on the Pro model as opposed to the normal 16. The main advantage for this, in my opinion, is that it allows for the phone to be physically smaller, retaining a relatively large display. So this phone, as I said earlier, has a slightly bigger display, 6.3 inches, but it doesn't actually feel that much bigger than the iPhone 15 Pro from last year, and that's probably because of that bezel reduction. Now, without a case, it is a little bit more premium and good looking, but when you put a case on any phone, the bezel girth gets completely covered by the case, so it doesn't really matter that it's thinner. But anyways, let's put everything that I've said into practice. Let's play some 4K video on the iPhone so you can see how good it actually looks. I'm going to play the video with the lights on so you can see how it looks with light interference, and then I'm going to turn the lights off so you can see how it truly looks, the closest experience to actually having it in front of you. Let's begin. Okay, what do you think? In my opinion, I have to be honest, I didn't really notice that big of a difference as opposed to the iPhone 15 Pro or the iPhone 16. I mean, I think they all share the same panel with the same color calibration and the same everything, even pixel density. So yeah, I don't think you're going to get a big advantage if you're coming from an iPhone 14 or 13 or 15. I think when it comes to display quality and calibration and everything, the iPhone's been really good for a long time. Now, I don't think there's anything new on the display settings. You still have your light and dark mode options, which, by the way, the dark mode doesn't actually save that much battery life. So if you like the way light mode looks better, you should turn it on because, as I said, the battery life difference is not going to be that big. You can change the text size, you can make it bold, you can change the brightness here, although you can more comfortably change it in the control center. You can activate True Tone, so the iPhone adjusts its temperature to the colors around you. In this case, as you can see, makes the iPhone look warmer when I turn it on because my lights are warm. You can change the auto lock, which is I think set to 1 minute by default. Set it to never, that's my advice. Now, two things that I usually like to turn off are first, raise to wake, which lets the iPhone turn on when you make a very slight movement, and it gets very annoying because usually the iPhone would wake up when you do this, a very obvious, in this case it's not working, when I do the obvious movement, but then you do a slight movement like this and it turns on. It gets messy, gets weird, so I usually turn it off, and then the always on display, which as you can see was already turned off. When it's turned on, as you can see, it shows a slightly dimmer lock screen instead of completely locking the phone. And although it is handy so you can see the time and your notifications, it also gets kind of confusing because you don't really know if your phone is off or it just has low brightness. So I also like to turn it off. Now, moving on, let's talk about security. In this case, the iPhone still only has one security measure or mechanism, which is Face ID, besides, of course, the traditional passcode. But that being said, it is very fast and very reliable, faster and better than ever, in fact. Let me actually set it up so you can see how fast it works. I think they've improved it over time. I'm not really sure in what generation of iPhone, but it's getting super fast. I remember back in the day, you had to do like two iPhone runs to set it up, 2 circles. But now you only have to do one. As you can see, it's completely set up. You have the option to do more additional scanning for unlocking it with a mask, but you can also not use a mask with Face ID. And it is completely done. It took me like, 10 seconds to do the whole scanning of my face, and it's ready to go. Now, for passcodes, as always, we can do a 4-digit number code, 6-digit number code. We can do a custom number code with as many numbers as we want, or a custom alphanumeric code with any number, any letter, or any symbol we want for maximum security. But anyways, that being said, let's move on. Let's talk about the performance on the iPhone 16 Pro. As many of you know, it has a new chip, the A18 Pro with 3 nanometers and 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's supposed to be about 10 to 20% faster than the processor on the iPhone 15 Pro. In this case, I've been trying it for the past couple days, and I can tell you that of course, it is very fast, very fluid with iOS 18. There's no issues, no hiccups. Everything works and feels very fluid, but so did the iPhone 15 Pro, so did the iPhone 14, 13, 12 Pro. Like, at this point, there's not a lot of changes year by year with iPhones. I feel like to notice a change in fluidity, you would have to go back to maybe the iPhone 11. The biggest advantage, I would say, of having a top-tier processor is that you can use it for a long time and it won't slow down with newer software updates. So in 4 or 5 years, you can still use it and have a good experience, as opposed to maybe an iPhone 13 or 12 that are eventually, in a couple of years, 2 years, maybe going to start slowing down. So the newer phone, the more years ahead of good phone experience. That is the real advantage of getting one of these new processors. If we power it off, as you can see, it takes 1 second to completely shut down. To be fair, it is a new phone. I barely have any apps in it, so it is, of course, going to be very, very fluid. And if we turn it on, it is barely going to take like 15 seconds to boot up. It's probably one of the fastest phones when it comes to booting up I've ever seen in my life. And of course, when it comes to, you'll see it now, when it comes to opening ups, it is also blazing fast. No matter your internet connection, you'll see it later too. Like, I'm not really sure if it's because of the SSD speed, but it feels like it loads apps and websites faster as opposed to other devices, other old devices connected to the same internet. But anyways, let's delete, they're already deleted all the apps from the background, and do a quick app opening test to see how fast it is. So let's open the camera, very fast. Let's open the App Store. Incredibly fast. Let's do podcast. It's very immediate in most of these apps. Let's do the weather. Instantaneous. Let's do iTunes Store. Takes a little bit longer, but I feel like that's because it's an old app and it's not been optimized for the new devices. Let's open the Apple website. Very, very fast. Let's try maybe Yahoo. I guess Yahoo News. And immediate. I'm sure it's not a surprise to most of you because it is a new phone, top tier phone, has the latest processor. But yes, as you probably expected, performance when opening apps is very good, very fast. But anyways, that being said, let's keep going with what I believe is probably an even more interesting speed test, which is the gaming speed test. We are not only going to test out how fast the game launches, but also how it plays and how hot the temperature of the phone gets when we play, because that's currently one of the biggest concerns with modern phones. They work very well. They give you great graphics on games, great performance, but they also run extremely hot. So we are also going to measure the temperature. As you can see, Asphalt 9 took a couple seconds to load up. It is set to max graphics, just in case you wanted to know. It's max graphics, and it's loading up in a couple seconds. It's very, very fast. And as you can see, the experience, I mean, it's very hard to tell on this game because the camera doesn't move, so you can't really notice if it's playing at 30 FPS, 60 or 120. But based on the animations of the cars and of the explosions and stuff like that, I would say it's over 60 FPS, which is very impressive for a game that looks like this. It is a very graphically intense game. It's very photorealistic, so to say, at least for a phone game. So the fact that it plays over 60 FPS is very, very impressive. Well, technically it is, but it actually isn't. Take into account how powerful the iPhone 16 Pro is. It's no surprise that it runs very well, and it did too on the iPhone 15 Pro Max last year. So there's that. We are also going to play Call of Duty, and we are also going to play Genshin Impact, which is the phone killer game nowadays. Like, there's absolutely no no phone that can play that game without at least burning in your hands after 5 minutes, at least. Now, as a point of reference, let's measure the temperature after one Asphalt 9 race. As you can see, it's set at 33 degrees, which is, I would say, average temperature for a phone. It doesn't feel any hotter than it did before I loaded up the game. So, I mean, it's been like 2 minutes. I don't think we should be drawing any conclusions yet, but for now, the phone is remaining cool, and it's played incredibly well at max settings, at least Asphalt 9. As you can see, Call of Duty is also very fast at loading up. It is a very demanding game. I mean, most phones, I would say, can play this game currently without any issues, but we are going to max it out. Let's go to the settings. And as you can see, we are at max graphical quality with max frame rate. So the best graphics possible and the best frame rate possible for the game. And we are playing. I think I'm going to get cooked because I accidentally entered a match with other players. I usually play against bots for these videos, because I'm, recording and talking and filming and looking at the display instead of the phone. So it's a little hard for me to shoot and aim at the enemies, especially if they're good players. But okay, seems like maybe they're not real players. These people don't seem to be very good. I didn't really pay attention if I was entering a match against bots or real players, but seems like they are bots at the end of the day. So we are good. Performance is very, very impressive. I mean, the game looks very good on high graphics. I think they increased the texture quality and the graphical quality as opposed to the last time I came in, because these games looking very, very good, very impressive. As you can see, the textures and the lighting is heavily improved. I mean, I would say it almost looks better than it did on the original Modern Warfare game for PS2 and PS3. So it's really very impressive how the game looks and how it feels at 120 FPS, because I can confirm you, even though there's no banner on the screen saying how many FPS we are running at, I can confirm this is over 60 FPS. I'm not sure if it's hitting 120 all the time, but I can tell you for sure that this is playing at over 60 FPS because of how smooth it is. You probably are not going to notice, though, on the video, because I'm recording at 30 FPS. So you can't really distinguish the difference between 30 or 60 or 120, but I can notice, and I can tell you this is definitely over 60 FPS. But anyways, that being said, let's do the temperature check. And wow, it is almost running cooler than it was when playing Asphalt 9. And both games are loaded up right now at the same time. It's been longer. I've been playing for longer, and the phone's not warming up at all. Very impressive. I'm curious to know what happens, though, when I load up Genshin Impact, which is known to be the phone killer. This game is very, very demanding. It almost kills maybe not the performance of any phone, but it kills the temperature balance of any phone. I've never seen a phone that doesn't get at least at 40 degrees Celsius, which is this much degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who live in America. Okay, so to begin with, let's change the graphical settings. I'm not really sure if they are, okay, they are in high by default, so everything is set at high and 30 FPS. Let's do 120 FPS, of course. It is an iPhone 16 Pro Max. And I don't think I'm going to bother with medium or low settings because, once again, this is an iPhone 16 Pro Max. It should be able to handle any game. Wow. Wow, that is smooth. That is smooth. You're not noticing on screen, but I am noticing in real life. This is smooth. I have never seen Genshin Impact run so buttery smooth. The combination of the high graphical preset with this level of fluidity on the display is amazing. It is truly amazing. I'm not really sure, as I said, you can tell because of the YouTube compression and the fact that I'm recording at 30 FPS, so you're probably not even noticing that much of a difference compared to the other games. But wow, this is impressive. Okay, let's kill some enemies. Let's see how it does when we are in a demanding situation with a lot of movement, a lot of effects. It seems like it's okay. So it's running smooth generally, but there are some hiccups every once in a while when you move the camera very fast, and they are happening a little too often, in my opinion. I mean, I was expecting it to be smooth generally, but I was not expecting it to have so many hiccups. Usually it has hiccups when you just log in for the first 10 seconds of the match or the playthrough, whatever you want to call it. But then it sort of balances out and it doesn't have any more hiccups unless you're maybe doing something very demanding. But yeah, the phone is having very consistent performance inconsistencies. And on top of that, you are not noticing, of course, but I am because my fingers are touching the back of the phone, and you can already guess what I'm about to say. It is getting rather hot. I'm only touching, my palms are touching the edges, so I'm not really noticing. But when I lightly touch the back here around the cameras, I'm starting to feel like the phone is getting a little hotter, which makes sense. There's, as I said earlier, no phone that currently escapes the Genshin Impact benchmark, the Genshin Impact challenge. But generally, I'm very happy with the performance. I mean, this is the way that I would play it if I wanted to play Genshin Impact on my phone. High settings, 120 FPS. That's kind of like the goal. You don't really need any more graphical quality. High looks very well. Maybe Ultra is going to look a little bit better, but high is fine. High is really good. And on top of that, you save a little bit of battery life, and it also feels a little bit smoother. I'm getting a little concerned with the performance drops, though. I mean, not really sure if you're noticing on the screen, but there are some hiccups. Let's do a third temperature check now after 2 minutes on Genshin Impact. Oh my god. 42 degrees Celsius. You'll be seeing the conversions on the display. That is a big jump. It is almost 10 degrees more in 2 minutes. I'm not really sure what's going on with these game. I'm not really sure how they coded the game, if that's the issue, but it seems to be consistent with any phone of any brand that they play fine with any graphical quality, especially these high-end phones, unless you want to play Genshin Impact, which then you have to get ready for an overclocked processor and very high temperatures. But because this is a benchmark, let's take it up a notch. Let's do highest graphical preset, and let's do, once again, 120 FPS. Of course, it says it's overclocked once again, but we don't care. Okay, so 2 things. First off, it feels as smooth, surprisingly, as smooth and fluent as it did with high graphics. So that's great. There's no performance loss when it comes to the way it feels. But, nothing. The only issue that we could encounter is the temperature increasing even more, which is very likely. Though, I have to say, I'm not really noticing it because, as I said, my palms are resting on the edges of the borders of the phone, the side edges, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not really in contact with the warm part of the phone. but I can notice because, as I said, my fingers are like lightly touching it, and I do notice the phone is increasingly getting hotter and hotter and hotter. But yeah, for the most part, it feels very smooth. It plays great. It looks amazing. Something I forgot to say, there is a visual improvement when you hit ultra settings, and it looks very impressive, especially for a phone game. This looks better than a lot of PS4 games did back in 5 years ago. It's very, very impressive that a phone is able to play this game at this resolution, this graphical preset, and this amount of FPS. Like, the PS5 struggles to hit 60 FPS in a lot of games, and an iPhone is able to do 120 in most games offered for it. But yeah, I mean, the time is approaching, my friends. I'm scared. No phone should hit over 45 degrees Celsius doing anything for safety reasons, for the longevity of the processor. So I hope the iPhone doesn't get over 45 degrees Celsius, which once again, I'll do the conversions, don't worry, for Fahrenheit, but it may go over 45. I mean, it's impressive what temperatures we can achieve by just playing Genshin Impact for 4 minutes. You can render videos, play any other game at high settings for as much as you want, but 2 minutes on Genshin Impact and your phone will literally cook eggs. The moment we have all been waiting for. The temperature, right on, 45 degrees. I said it should never go above 45, and it's at 45.4, 45 okay. I mean, this is just insane. Insane. 45.7 degrees Celsius, 45.8, 45.9. It's going to get to 46. Is it going to get to 46? Please don't get to 46. That would be concerning. Oh my God. 46 degrees Celsius. You'll be looking at the conversions on the display. Temperatures are absolutely insane on this phone. I can feel it. That's hot. To be fair, though, I don't think this is an iPhone 16 Pro issue. It's more of a Genshin Impact issue because it's happened to me with the S24 Ultra, with the iPhone 16. It's happened to me with my iPhone 15 Pro. As I said earlier, there's no phone that can escape the Genshin Impact challenge. So yeah, it played very smooth, very well, even at ultra settings, 120 FPS. There was barely any frame drops at that resolution. So performance was awesome. But for some reason, it gets completely unhinged and it makes the phones burn. I'm pretty sure I could cook an egg. You could look it up on Google. You could probably cook eggs at 45 degrees Celsius. It's insane. It feels very warm. It's uncomfortable to hold your hand here. And last but not least, I also want to run the most famous benchmark to see on paper how fast the iPhone 16 Pro really is compared to other phones. So let's do a CPU benchmark and run the CPU benchmark. Also to see how much it takes, you'll see it on screen. I'll do a quick time lapse and come back for the conclusions. Okay, so a little over 4 minutes, and these are the results. 3,200 points for the single core, and 7,900 for the multi-core. And I've seen higher. Some people have gotten 81, 8,200 for the multi-core. Very, very impressive. The phone is still warm from Genshin Impact, but it's getting cooler. And yeah, these are, I think, the best results we can see on any phone when it comes to Geekbench. This also doesn't really correlate that much with real life, so don't think because the results are higher that the phone is going to be better than maybe a S24 Ultra or the old iPhone 15 Pro. All high-end phones from the past 2 years are going to be amazing, but this one, and you can see why, is the one that's going to give you the best performance now and in the future. 5, 6, 7 years, this phone can last you almost a decade. Moving on, let's talk about the battery on the iPhone 16 Pro. In this case, it has a 9% bigger battery as opposed to the old iPhone 15 Pro with 3,582 milliamp hours, which is good based on my testing for about a day and a half of normal use or 1 day of intensive use. It is really getting to the point where you can actually get good battery life with a small iPhone, although it is at the expense of making the small iPhone be relatively big now. We've gone from 5.8 inches to 6.1 inches to now 6.3. So technically, the battery on the small iPhone has been getting better and better, but also at the cost of the iPhone physically also getting larger, which is maybe not good for everybody. Now, something I was definitely not expecting with this year's iPhones was that they were going to include actual fast charging. For the first time, the iPhone is able to compete against flagship Android phones when it comes to charging speeds. So first, if you do wired, normal, traditional charging, it can go up to 45 watts if you have the right adapter, of course, that Apple is not going to include in the box. You have to buy it separately. Now, even more impressive, you can do 25 watt wireless charging with the right MagSafe adapter. In fact, the only MagSafe adapter right now that can do that is the official MagSafe from Apple. That's like $45. Very expensive accessory. And you also need a 30 watt wall brick. That is also not included in the box. And you get 4.5 watt reversed wired charging. So if you have an iPhone, as you can see, with less battery than your other iPhone, in this case I have 64% and 87%, you can actually send some of the battery on the iPhone 16 to the iPhone 16 Pro. It is always automatically going to charge the iPhone with less battery. So if the iPhone 16 had 30% battery life, the 16 Pro would then charge the normal 16, and they will always charge until they both have the exact same amount of battery life. Apple definitely has the ability to do a more professional system where you can choose what iPhone charges which and to what extent and how fast, or even better, like with Samsung phones, they could have easily created a wireless reverse charging mechanism so you can charge AirPods or other phones with the back of your phone without the need for a cable. Either way, I think it is a great feature to have, and that combined with the very fast charging and the very good battery life on the iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max makes for a really good battery performance. Okay, now that being said, let's talk about the operating system. As many of you know, both the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max have iOS 18, which is the latest and greatest version of iOS available for the iPhone. And that comes with a great deal of improvements over the previous version. First off, customization. Now you can customize your home screen and your lock screen way more than you could with iOS 17. So if you tap and hold on the home screen, you can access the wiggle mode, so you can change the location of your icons. We'll talk about that later. But if you tap here on Edit and then tap on Customize, you can actually choose the color of your icons. You can make them light, which is the traditional mode, but you can also make them dark. You can also set it to automatic, so the iPhone chooses for you, or you can tint the icons to any color you want. Very strange. This is a weird move from Apple, which is a company that usually likes to show everything the way they think it should be done and not give the customer any customization. This year, they chose to go the Android route, so to say. But something that's a bit more impressive is that now, if you once again tap and hold and you go to wiggle mode, you can actually place icons on the display wherever you want. Something I really thought I would never see on an iPhone because they had 15 years to do this. Android phones have had this feature forever. And well, Apple chose to do this in 2024 with the iPhone 16 Pros. Now, as I said earlier, this improvement in customization also applies to the lock screen. You still have the option to change the font and the text size for the time, and you can add widgets. But now, for the first time ever, you can also change the icons, the quick access icons you have on the lock screen. So you can replace the torch for example, connectivity, or you can put Instagram here so you can quickly launch Instagram. And you can do it with both the left and the right quick access. It is very convenient. Now, something that is a bit disappointing with iOS 18 is that its main headline feature, Apple Intelligence, is actually not available right now when I am making this video. It is going to come out later, I think in October, November. At some point, Apple didn't really do any clarifications for when exactly it was going to launch. But if you live in any other place on the planet, Europe, or South America or anywhere. You probably are not going to get those features until 2025. I'm not really sure what's the deal with Apple and why it's taking so long. I remember with the S24 Ultra, Samsung actually launched all of their AI features at launch with their phone, and they've actually also included most of those AI features on older iPhone models, Samsung Galaxy models. In the iPhone, it seems like it's a much bigger deal to launch it and to include it in other iPhones. I think it's only available, in fact, on the iPhone 16 lineup and the iPhone 15 Pro. Those are the only phones that are compatible with Apple Intelligence, which almost makes it worse because a lot of people are probably going to be buying this phone, the iPhone 16 Pro, because they want to try Apple Intelligence. And they are not going to be able to try it because it's not available yet. I'm not sure if when you're watching this video, it is going to be available. At some point, it is eventually going to launch. But yeah, right now, when I'm making this video, it is not available. I wish I could show you, but for now, we still get the old Siri. We still don't get any of those fancy AI features included in apps. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing. Now, when it comes to connectivity, the iPhone 16 Pro has the best of the best. First off, it has Wi-Fi 7, which is the best Wi-Fi standard on the planet. And even though most people don't really have Wi-Fi 7 routers to take advantage of these extra speed, I have noticed that the iPhone 16 Pro has much faster internet speeds than my, for example, old iPhone 15 Pro that is only a year old. But yeah, I've done some testing. I'll show you now. The iPhone 16 Pro is much faster. Okay, so to keep it fair, I'm going to do the speed test first on the iPhone 15 Pro, and once it's finished, I'll do it on the 16 Pro, so there's no interference. Let's do it on the 15 Pro. 30 megabytes up, and you'll probably see the same speed of uploading. Faster uploading. Yeah, it's always unpredictable what you can get on the speed test. Scores depends on how many devices are connected, how far you are from the router. In this case, I'm in the opposite side of the house to the router, so internet speeds shouldn't be that great. But if we do the same speed test on the iPhone 16 Pro, you'll see that it is noticeably faster, almost double as opposed to the iPhone 15 Pro, which is not even that old. It was on sale a couple weeks ago, and now it has been completely dethroned, so to say, by the iPhone 16 Pro. So I do this to say that even though you don't have a Wi-Fi 7 router, you don't really need that to take advantage of the higher Wi-Fi speeds or the better Wi-Fi modem, because as you can see, I have a Wi-Fi 5E router, so it's not even Wi-Fi 6, and I can take advantage of the better Wi-Fi connection on the new phone. But anyways, we also have Bluetooth 5.3, the fastest, best standard for Bluetooth. So even though we don't have a headphone jack at the bottom, we are going to get very fast Bluetooth connections with very good quality. We can connect it to multiple devices. The connections are going to be very fast. So in this case, again, the best of the best. And of course, we get 5G. In this case, it is going to depend on your country. People from the US are going to get the better version of 5G with ultra-wideband, which gives you insanely high speeds. And if you live in the UK or Europe or South America or Japan, you are going to get 5G technically too, but it's the slower version of 5G, which is only, twice as fast as 4G. It is still very impressive. It is still nice to have 5G. And technically, you are going to save a little bit of battery life by not having the faster 5G. But yeah, only people from the US get the best of the best 5G. And well, I can't really show you, but you also have an NFC chip on the phone. The problem here is that because this is an iPhone, you can't really use the NFC chip for anything else than Apple Pay. You can only use it for making payments with Apple Pay, not even Google Pay or Samsung Pay or any other payment system. You can only use the NFC chip for one thing, and it's to pay things with the official Apple mechanism. Now, probably one of the most important components on the iPhone 16 Pro are the cameras. That's the reason nowadays most people buy a new phone, because they want to get better cameras. And this year, even though they don't really look that different as opposed to last year, there are some camera improvements worth noting. The first one is that the ultra-wide camera has quadrupled the amount of megapixels, from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels. And it is also a new sensor, so you are going to get better dynamic range, better capturing speeds, and a little bit more detail. Then the main camera, it is still 48 megapixels like it was on the iPhone 15 Pro and 14 Pro, but it also has a new sensor that, even though is, I think, the same size as the old one, it is a much faster, much sharper sensor that's going to capture better images with a little bit more dynamic range. So you are also going to take slightly better photos and videos. And last but not least, unfortunately, we get the same 5x telephoto camera we got last year on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Only difference is that now we get it on the big phone, on the 6.9-inch iPhone 16 Pro Max, and also on the small iPhone 16 Pro. As you probably remember, last year we only got the good 5x telephoto on the bigger phone. This year we get it on both. Now we still have the same LiDAR scanner on the back we got with the iPhone 12. It is still kind of useless. There's really no application for it in practical terms besides a couple apps. We still get the same tiny microphone on the back, and we still get the camera flash, which is brighter than ever. When it comes to photo and video resolutions, with the ultra-wide camera, you can do 4K video up to 60 FPS and 12, 24, and 48 megapixel photos. With the main camera, you can do 4K video up to 120 FPS. We'll talk about that later. And you can take 12, 24, and 48 megapixel photos. And last but not least, with the 5x telephoto, you can take 4K videos at 60 FPS, I think, at most, and you can take 12 megapixel photos because it's a 12 megapixel sensor. And well, as always, you can capture normal videos and photos or HDR videos and photos, which are going to get you more dynamic range by combining different exposures into one, which is sort of like an artificial process to get photos and videos to look better, even though they also look a little bit fake, so to say. Now, as I said earlier, we have the new camera control with which we can directly access the camera, but that is not the only improvement we've gotten on the camera interface this year. As you can see, there is this little square icon at the top, which enables the smart filters. I'm not really sure how Apple called these things, but they are basically smart filters. So, back in the day, we got filters, vibrant filter, natural filter, luminous filter, different looks for our images. The difference is that this year we can actually control the parameters and the intensity of the filter with some extra settings, so we can dial it in exactly the way we want it. And I think we can even save these settings for the next time, so we don't have to be adjusting it every time we want to take a picture. Now, besides that, settings are almost identical as they were last year. We have this JPEG Max icon with which we can enable the 48 megapixel mode for photos. We also have this button to enable and disable live photos, which are sort of like a photo combined with a video. If you take a photo with it enabled, you can tap and hold, and it's going to reveal the previous and following seconds before and after you took the picture for a slightly better memory of the moment, so to say. You can also select between the different cameras from 0.5 to 1 to 2, which is a crop on the main sensor, to 5. Now, there's something you should also know, and it's that if you enable JPEG Max for 48 megapixel photos, the photos are not going to be 48 megapixels if you select 2x or 5x because the sensors are 12 megapixels. You are only going to enable 48 for the main camera at 24 millimeters. So even if you tap 28 or 35, you can't really access that 48 megapixel resolution, and also 4.5x because of the new 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera. Now, I think the photo and video modes are exactly the same. We have panoramic mode, we have spatial, well, this is new, spatial video, a dedicated space for spatial video, which is video exclusive for the Vision Pro goggles. You're going to be looking at a picture of them right now. You probably know what they are, and you probably don't have a pair because they are very expensive. So if you have a pair of Vision Pros, you are going to take advantage of spatial video. But if you don't, which is very likely, this is just completely useless, actually. Then we have a portrait mode for photo, which is, the artificial background blur effect on photos. So if you snap a picture of, for example, the plant, you can actually see the background is a little bit more blurry than it should for a picture taken with a phone. And that's because the the phone is artificially going to create background blur with artificial intelligence. Then we have a normal photo mode with which we can select from all the cameras. As you can see, depending on the mode, you can maybe access only a few of the cameras on the back. So if we do portrait mode, we can only do 2x, 1x, and 5x. We can't really use the ultra-wide camera. If we use normal video, we can access all the cameras. But if we do cinematic, I think we can only access the main camera, whether it is full sensor or cropped. And if we access slow motion, we can only access 0.5, 1, or 5. We can't really do a crop. So you can pay attention to this while I swipe. Depending on the mode, some of the cameras may be disabled. Now, something that I want to show you here is that at the top, you probably already knew, you can select the resolution for your video. And we can go up to 4K like we always could, but now we can also increase the frame rate up to 60 or 120 frames per second, which is absolutely insane. I was supposed to wait for the video samples, but I'm going to show you a quick video now so you can see how smooth and high quality it looks. It is amazing that Apple has enabled the option to record 4K video at 120 FPS or slow-mo without any quality loss as opposed to 30 or 60 FPS. It is really impressive. Unfortunately, for 120 FPS, as you can see, we can only use the main camera and the 2x crop, so no 5x or 0.5x. Then as you can see on cinematic mode, we can do 4K, but only up to 24 or 30 FPS. And for slow-mo video, well, I think we have the same, if not more, options for resolution and frame rate. We can do HD at 240 FPS, we can do HD at 120 FPS, and we can do 4K at 120 FPS. Although, something you should also know, and I've never seen anybody talk about this, but it's rather important. If you capture a 4K video at 120 FPS from the slow-mo mode, it is going to look worse as opposed to if you capture the video from the normal video mode. I think this is because if you capture it from the video mode, the compression is the same as for normal video. But if you capture 4K 120 video from the slow-mo mode, the compression is stronger, so the video looks a little bit worse. Something you should keep in mind. Now, unfortunately, if you want to change any settings for video or photo on your camera, you actually have to get out of the camera, come to the settings, and tap here on camera. For some reason, Apple didn't enable this directly on the camera app. But anyways, here you can control the default video resolution. So every time you open the video app, you can choose what resolution it's set at. So you can do 4K 120. So when you open the app and go to video, it's going to set at 4K 120. But if you set it at 4K 30, for example, and you come back, it's going to be set at 4K 30. You can always change it later to other resolutions and frame rates. But if you choose a default, every time you come back to the app, it's going to set to that default. And something you should also keep in mind is that if you're looking to take better videos, you should probably pay attention to this feature. Lock white balance. If you enable it, quite literally, you are going to lock the white balance settings. So they are consistent from the moment you started recording to the moment you stopped recording. And that's what we do here on YouTube. Pretty much every YouTube video you've seen has a locked white balance, because if not, the colors of the video would be changing constantly based on the colors on the display. So if I flip the phone back, colors would change. If I flip it over, they would change again. It would look inconsistent and cheap. So any professional production, any movie, TV show, YouTube video has locked white balance. So if you are looking to make slightly better, more professional videos, turn this option on. Down below, you can also change the default resolution for slow-mo video. In this case, I set it to 4K 120. You can also change the default resolution for cinematic video. In this case, I would set it at 4K 30 FPS. This is very important. As you can see, we can change the recording sound type. There's 3 ways you can record sound: spatial, stereo, and mono. Traditionally, we've always had stereo on any phone since the iPhone 1 to the iPhone 15 Pro. But this year, Apple has introduced spatial audio, which is a slightly more immersive audio experience that captures audio with more microphones and gives you sort of like a surround sound type audio experience. The problem here is that the files we need to create for spatial audio are a little complicated to edit or show or play back, especially playback on other devices. So if you're planning on using the footage from your iPhone on a computer, on a TV, on a laptop, or any other phone, be careful, because I was trying to edit some videos captured with spatial audio on my computer, and I couldn't. The computer was crashing all the time because it was not able to read spatial audio. So once again, if you're planning on sending those files to other devices, switch it over to stereo. That's at least my advice. Also, something you should keep in mind here on formats is that you have two options. By default, it is going to be set at high efficiency, but I highly recommend you set it at most compatible, because it is going to look a little bit better and it is also more compatible. So once again, if you want to send those files to a computer or to other phones, they are more likely to play back fine if this option is enabled. And well, there is a bunch of other settings for photo and video. I don't want to go through all of them because the video would be too long, but I want to touch on something else. As you can see, there's an option here called grid. I highly recommend you turn it on if you want to take better photos and better videos. As you can see, it basically divides the photo capturing display into 9 different squares, so you can better frame and compose your images and videos. It also, as you can see, affect to the video feed. This is not something you need by any means to take normal photos and videos, but if you are trying to get better at photography or videography, this, and I say this by experience, can really help you better frame your photos and videos. And considering this is a very expensive device, and once again, a lot of people buy it to take better photos and videos, this could be a really helpful tool for that very reason. But anyways, let's move on to what I'm pretty sure all of you want to see. I've prepared a long gallery of photos and videos taken in different lighting conditions, so outdoors, indoors, daytime, nighttime, higher resolution, low resolution, so you can properly see what kind of results you can expect out of the iPhone 16 Pro. You can skip forward, backward, pause the video, so don't worry. I'm going to leave you with some nice background music, and then I'll be back for the conclusions. Okay, so we have seen everything: the design, the display, connectivity, gaming, processor, software, cameras. We have seen absolutely everything that's relevant about the iPhone 16 Pro. And my conclusion after seeing all of these things is that the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, of course, are great phones, and for most people are going to serve wonderfully well for many, many years. Now, if you have an old iPhone, and this is the main deal, I think, of this video, if you have an old iPhone, should you upgrade now to the iPhone 16 Pro? Well, it is heavily going to depend on what iPhone you have. If you have an iPhone 15 Pro, don't you dare update to the 16 Pro. It is almost identical. If you have an iPhone 14 Pro, which I think I have right here, in fact, here it is. If you have an iPhone 14 Pro, I also don't think you should update because they are almost identical. They have the same camera sizes and they have almost the same design, and the display has the same brightness and same resolution, and there's not that big of a difference. If you have an iPhone 13 Pro, maybe then you can justify an upgrade. And anything that's below, yes, go ahead, upgrade to the iPhone 16 Pro or Pro Max. You're going to have an amazing experience and you're going to notice the upgrade, which is what should make you upgrade to a new phone. As I said earlier, you have Amazon links with the best prices available for the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max down below in the description. And now that the video is about to end, I recommend you go take a look.